Assalamu alaikum. This is your very own Dr Shabina Asad Qayyum for the Body Health and Mind Show on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. And what should I say? On a Monday evening, I'm going to say I'm back. Of course I do. On Wednesday, I usually do my show, but the time and the day has now changed. And the reason behind that was because my Wednesdays were becoming more and more increasingly busy. But I am so delighted to be back here with you. This has always been my happy place. And the reason I say that is because I have always been a part of Salam Radio since 2015. I had my first debut show in 2015. I've been running health shows in collaboration with the wonderful volunteers behind the show. So it's always been my happy place. So whether I come after 2 months or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it's always a delight to be here with you. And I absolutely love doing the show at this time and day. And I'll tell you why. On Wednesdays, I used to run from work to get here, and I'd be flustered and have to prepare, and it would make me rather panicked and anxious, and I'd sit there and I'd go full blown with talking on the show. But this time, actually, I did go to work. I went home, I ate, I changed, I came back here to the studio in relax mode, so you can hear me exactly in that fashion. Relaxed. So wonderful to have you all here, my brothers and sisters. And this is the Body Health and Mind Show with your very own Dr Shabina Asad Qayyum. And it would be wonderful if you could participate in the show. And in order to do so, all you need to do is tune in to the Facebook Live, or you could call me and have a conversation about the health issues that I talk about on 01733 602 133. You can text us on 07411191062. And where I usually get engagement from is on the Facebook Live, on the YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch Live. So do join us. I think that it's a wonderful show, and I do try to bring the latest in a lot of medical issues. But before that, you know that I always give a shout out to somebody on the show. And today was very interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because I spoke to somebody on the telephone. I'm obviously a GP in the city, so I spoke to a wonderful brother on the telephone who said, "Are you Dr. Shabina?" And I said, "Oh, yes, I am." And this wonderful patient then exclaimed that his lovely daughter listens to my show. And I'm going to give a shout out to her. Her name is Rabil Farouk. And Rabil, today you get a shout out on my show because you listen to the shows, and I'm so glad that you listen to them, and I hope that you can take something positive from them, because that is what this show is all about. So Rabil, I hope you enjoy the rest of the show, and do write to me, do comment on the Facebook Live, text on WhatsApp. I've given you the number 07411191062. Send me a message. Ask me questions. This is what it's all about. And if it's not to do with anything topic related on what I'm talking about, ask me anything on any other matter as well. So without further ado, here we are. And I thought I was going to start this new show. And I thought, let me ask the listeners as to what it is they would like me to talk about. And I put out a questionnaire and a post, and a lot of people commented on it. Things to do with mental health, things to do with ulcerative colitis, things to do with medication. We also had hay fever that was very much high up on the agenda. And somebody interestingly asked me to talk about health in Hajj and how you can promote your own health in Hajj. So I think it's really important. But goodness gracious me, we know that the weather is quite warm, and because of this warm weather, we can see an increase in the pollen count, and there are so many people who are suffering from hay fever. So it's important to talk about it. It's important to talk about what hay fever is, why we get it, what we can do to help ourselves. So I'm going to do that in the first half of the show. And then in the second half of the show, I'm going to talk about how to take care of our health during Hajj. Now, I've got a wonderful elder brother, my cousin, who's come all the way from up north, and I hope he's listening to the show because when I told him today, I said to him, Bhaijan, I'm going to be talking about looking after your health in Hajj. Do you know what he said to me? He said, but everybody's gone for Hajj now, so how will they be able to listen to you? And he made a point, but I think it's important as well for those that can listen to me all the way from Saudi Arabia who are residents in Peterborough to take these tips on board. So I will be talking about helping yourself for Hajj. And who knows, those of you that are listening today may be able to take those tips back if you go next year. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala call you all to his house in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, to perform the pilgrimage. So it's wonderful that we are here. And let's talk a little bit about hay fever, shall we? So we all know that hay fever is caused by an allergy to pollen, isn't it? And the main symptoms that you get are runny, itchy, blocked nose, sneezing most of the time, and itchy eyes as well. And you can get all sorts of treatment for it over the counter. Sometimes a lot of these treatments are prescribed as well. And I've seen that throughout the season, starting from spring, when the first flowers start to blossom, as soon as they release their pollen, there are phases of hay fever. So initially, those that suffer from particular allergies to pollens as a result of spring flowers will start getting hay fever symptoms earlier on. Some of those people may see an ease in their symptoms as the other pollen starts to become more apparent as well. But pollen is actually the name that's given to the fine powder that's produced by plants, trees, or flowers of the same species. Now, the most common cause of hay fever is actually from grass pollen, and it tends to affect people every year in the grass pollen season, and that really does stem from about May to July time, so late spring until about the early summer. However, the term hay fever is often used when allergies are caused by other pollens, such as from tree pollen. And trust me, there is a big amount of pollen, a very huge amount of pollen that comes from trees, from their blossom, when that blossom sheds. And we see a lot of hay fever as a result of tree pollen as well. So it's important that you know that. But like I said, it's very seasonal. So tree pollen can become a lot more prominent from about March to May, and it can extend to about early summer to late spring too, and that occurs every year. Other people may be allergic to pollen that comes from weed, including from nettles and docks, and weeds tend to pollinate from the early spring to the early autumn, so you have a problem with weeds all the time as well. Now, in medical terms, hay fever causes a condition called seasonal allergic rhinitis, and this means that a seasonal allergic rhinitis is actually a swelling of the inside of the nose that occurs due to an allergy occurring usually at the same time or in the same season each year. It can also cause an allergic inflammation of the outer part of the eyes, which is known as your conjunctiva as well. So what we've got to do is be mindful that particular people at particular time can get allergic to different pollens at different times of the year. So it's very important that we make a note of that as well. So with reference to that, let's go on and talk a little bit about hay fever symptoms themselves. Why do people get symptoms of sneezing, itchy eyes, runny nose, tickling at the back of the throat, sometimes itchy ears, and in some cases I've even seen people wheeze quite a lot because they develop a cough as a result of their airways becoming tighter. And that is because our own immune system reacts to the pollen when we are exposed to it, when our airways are exposed to it. So the cells on the lining of the nose and eyes then release chemicals, and the name of that chemical is histamine. That is why you take an antihistamine when they come into contact with the pollen. This causes inflammation in the nose, it causes inflammation in the eyes, and sometimes the sinuses and throat can also be affected as a result of it as well. Now, one thing to consider is that hay fever does not cause a temperature. So if you have somebody that you know or you yourself are suffering from a high temperature and also have sneezing, coughing, eyes watering, body aches and pains, it actually could mean you've got an infection as opposed to having hay fever. So just be mindful of that difference, that hay fever will never cause a temperature. So, I have Mr. David Garner, the greatest comedian on the planet, who has graced my show. Welcome, David Garner. It's lovely to see your comment. I'm going to read this out because David's jokes make me smile every single day. And what he has said is, the doctor advised my 80-year-old granddad to walk 5 miles a day. He's 97 now, and we haven't a clue where he is. Thank you so much for that, David. You really do bring a smile to my face. Honestly, you really do. And I really appreciate the fact that you take the time out to listen to my show. It's lovely to have you. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for making us laugh. That was David, everybody. So going back to symptoms of hay fever, they can vary from person to person. Some people only have mild symptoms that tend to come and go. Others can be severely affected with symptoms that are present every day during the pollen season. And sometimes it can be so difficult for people to manage that their whole working life, children who go to school, can be detrimentally impacted. So it's very important that we take these things into consideration. I've got some good tips and ideas for those of you who suffer from hay fever. And that's why I don't want to dwell too much in the beginning about talking about what people are allergic to, because you all sort of know what you're allergic to. It's about more the symptoms as well. And the symptoms, like I said, were that you can get a runny or a blocked nose, an itchy nose, sneezing, red, itchy and watery eyes, an itchy throat, and a cough. And in some severe cases, which are less common symptoms, some people can suffer from a loss of smell, face pain because your sinuses are blocked from all those secretions that are being produced, sweats, and sometimes headaches. You can sometimes get asthma symptoms as well. Now, hay fever season, and this is what you've got to be prepared for, usually lasts the length of the pollen season. For example, people who are allergic or to grass pollen may get symptoms from May to July, and people with tree pollen allergies can experience symptoms from March to May. Some people are allergic to more than one type of pollen and experience symptoms for far longer. And the pollen levels change depending upon the weather, depending upon where you are on the planet, and other things as well. So symptoms can flare up and improve at different points during the season. I've often seen a lot of my patients present with pollen allergy symptoms that become severe as the evening sets in. So that's one element of things. And like other allergies, some people seem to grow out of hay fever, and we don't know why that is. I can remember when I was younger, I used to have such severe hay fever. And when I was expecting our children, that I would have such severe hay fever that my eyes used to swell up and I would need steroid drops to be put into my eyes. It was that bad. So they can improve. And allergies, I've always said in any of my previous shows that you may have listened to, allergies are really weird things, because there are many people that may exhibit an allergy to something, for example, a foodstuff, and then many years later, they find that actually they can eat it without any problem whatsoever. So it's important to keep those things in mind as well. Hay fever is incredibly common, as we know, and it affects about 1 in 5 people in the UK. it tends to run in families. Is there any genetic cause of it? Is it linked? Is it inherited? There is no substantive research to confirm that, although it is noted that yes, it does run in family as well. The other link is that people with hay fever are more likely to have asthma and eczema underlying as well, because of the link with allergies to various things. So whilst we talk about obviously the symptoms and the signs of hay fever, it's very important that we talk about how to help those of us that have hay fever. Now, before I go on to the generic treatments, what I would like to say is that I myself, I've been a great sufferer of hay fever for many years. And I used to have an allergy, a skin allergy, for which I had to take an antihistamine every single day. And I have been taking an antihistamine every single day for the last couple of years, even throughout the winter, because as soon as I'd get into bed, because of the heat of the covers, I developed this allergic skin rash. And I was told that that was an allergy to heat in my skin. My skin is particularly sensitive to heat, so it breaks out in a rash. So I'd take an antihistamine. And I'd noted that in the summer, I wouldn't suffer from hay fever at all. And that would be due to a buildup. So if you are somebody who is completely miserable because of hay fever, that is something that I would suggest that you consider. I think that it's really important that people get ahead of themselves in hay fever, and before the season arrives, you start taking treatment, because that is the way to build up your defense against pollen if it settles into your body, or if you're exposed to it into your body as well. It's impossible to avoid pollen totally. However, symptoms are less severe if you reduce your exposure. Now, that depends upon the pollen count, and nowadays it's easily accessible, the pollen count is, and it's often given on your local TV, on your radio, or the internet, or newspaper, or weather forecasts. And a high pollen count is a pollen count above 50, so keep that in mind as well. So you can check your local pollen count just by Googling it or searching for it. Best thing to do if you want to avoid your exposure to pollen, stay indoors as much as possible. And here's me saying something controversial, especially in this hot weather, but it is best to keep out pollen by keeping windows and doors shut as well. Avoid cutting your grass if you are particularly affected by a pollen allergy or grass pollen allergy. Avoid large grassy places, and avoid camping as well, because that can set it off too. Shower, wash your hair after being outdoors, especially after going to the countryside, because the pollen can stick in your hair and cause allergy symptoms too. Wear wraparound sunglasses when you're out rather than the stylish designer ones. I know a lot of people will be eating their heart out about doing that, but actually if you suffer from really bad pollen allergy, wearing wraparound sunglasses is a good option. Only temporary, mind you. Keep your car windows closed, and buy a pollen filter for your air vents in the car, and these should be changed at every service. And trust me, it does. My pollen allergy used to get worse when I would sit in the car, and the reason for that was because it literally, the air would be blowing pollen at me, so I would feel that I'd be very, very sensitive to that. Now, the bad news is there is no cure for hay fever, but the good news is that there are good treatments for it, and I'm going to go on. I am going to tell you about the antihistamine tablets, about steroid nasal sprays, even antihistamine nasal sprays, and eye drops as well. First and foremost, if you suffer from hay fever, what I would do is, and this is me, the wife of an ENT surgeon and who has a background of ENT herself as well, to douche your nose or to wash your nose and your eyes frequently, if not first thing in the morning and last thing at night, with tepid warm water or saline water. And how you would make saline water is you would take a mug of water, and which is lukewarm, and you would put in about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of salt in it and dissolve it. You would then use that to flush your nostrils, not into your eyes, but flush your nostrils, okay? And plain water to flush your eyes. Tap dry your eyes. Then you should actually use some Vaseline to smear just inside the rim of your nostrils on both sides and on your eyelashes, because Vaseline will help the pollen get trapped because of its stickiness. So use that as well, and that will prevent the pollen from going upwards. Then you would always take your antihistamine tablet, but it's very important that you stick to washing out the pollen as well. Now, it is always good, rather than having the symptoms and then taking a tablet, to take the tablets regularly throughout the pollen season. So my suggestion would be for an adult to take an antihistamine in the morning and in the evening as well, especially if you particularly suffer from a severe allergy. So take an antihistamine tablet twice a day, irrespective of whether you have symptoms or not, if you are a hay fever sufferer. If it is a child, however, taking the antihistamine at nighttime is better because it helps them with their sleep as well and helps prevent them from getting any disturbance in sleep. Now, antihistamine nasal sprays are also an option. These can rapidly ease any itching, sneezing and watering, even within 15 minutes or so. And how they do that is they block the action of histamine. So you can have an antihistamine nasal spray, which are different from steroid nasal sprays as well. We've already spoken about antihistamine tablets. I'm not going to bore you with that. But one thing I do need to say to you is that there are lots of antihistamine tablets that can cause drowsiness as a side effect. So taking antihistamine tablets that have non-sedative effects are better than those that have sedative effects. And those that have non-sedative effects are loratadine, cetirizine, fexofenadine, and acrivestin. So these are and desloratadine as well. So these are 4 to 5 tablets that are non-drowsy. There are some people who will still present to me and say we still feel drowsy on cetirizine. And fair enough, if you feel drowsy on cetirizine, then you can use something else. So loratadine, fexofenadine. I suppose your fexofenadine used to be able to be bought on prescription. Now I believe that you can buy it over the counter, but you can check with your pharmacist and your GP. Now, fexofenadine, 120 milligrams, can now be bought without a prescription, whereas 180 milligrams need to be bought on prescriptions as well. Now, antihistamine medications such as loratadine and cetirizine can also be used by children from the age of 2 years old as well. Let's talk about steroid nasal sprays. So they work well to clear all the nasal symptoms, and they can also help with eye symptoms as well. And sometimes steroid nasal drops are used. But it does take about several days for a steroid nasal spray to build up to its full effect. Therefore, there is no immediate release of symptoms. You have to keep on using it as well. So use the spray each day after you have cleansed your nose with the saline water. That is very important to keep symptoms away. Once symptoms have gone, however, the dose of a steroid spray can be reduced to just a maintenance. So where you are using 2 sprays each nostril once or twice a day, you can now reduce it to 1 spray per nostril once a day. You don't have to increase it by any means. The dangers of having a steroid nasal spray, well, not really dangers, but side effects are you can get some bleeding from the nose, which is, epistaxis. You can, because what steroids do are they thin the lining of the nose. So you can get some bleeding of the nasal passages in the nose. So as soon as if that is something that you suffer from, then stop your steroid nasal spray and start applying Vaseline or an ointment inside the nose to make sure that you don't develop an infection as a result of the bleeding as well. And then when you're better, seek advice from your GP, because it's very important that you seek advice from your GP too. Do not rub your eyes if you have hay fever, because that will make a lot of irritation that will give you a lot of irritation, and it could cause infection as well. So don't rub the eyes. The best thing is to do a cool towel or a cool pack wrapped in a flannel and pressed on the eyes, and that will get rid of the itch too. With 10 seconds. Coming back after the break, we will be talking about looking after our health in Hajj. Don't go away.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Could you spare a few hours each month to provide support to people who are going through tough times? If so, Peterborough Samaritans are looking for volunteers who are empathetic and open-minded, and we'd love to hear from you. We run regular information sessions where you can find out more about what it means to volunteer for Samaritans. If you are at least 18 years of age and would like to know more, please email volunteer@peterboroughsamaritans.org.
Attention foodies! Discover a world of flavours at Pack Foods, the largest ethnic supermarket in Peterborough. Shop our vast selection of authentic ingredients from around the globe, including spices, marinated fish and meats, and exotic fruits at incredibly low prices. And the best part? We offer free parking. No more hunting for a spot. Come visit us today and explore the incredible range of flavours at Pack Foods, 232 Lincoln Road.
At Cake Inn, all our cakes and slices are freshly baked for that delicious taste. At Cake Inn, we bake 100% vegetarian and halal eggless fresh cream cakes. Delicious flavoured cakes for birthdays and weddings, ceremonies and all other occasions, with free customised messages, even balloons and candles too. Order for delivery or collection from Cake Inn, 489 Lincoln Road, PE1 2PE, and your cake could be ready within 2 hours. Find out more and order online at cakein.co.uk or call 01733 496 584.
Satisfy your cravings at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant. Enjoy a tantalising variety of Chinese, Italian, Pakistani and comfort food favourites, from starters to desserts. Kids under 5 dine for free, so bring the whole family to our location at 63 Sycamore Avenue. Open every day from 5 p.m. till 10:30 p.m. Call us on 01733 313131 or book online to reserve your table. Ibrahimi-restaurant.co.uk. Every bite is a delight at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant.
Fancy the true taste of Middle Eastern Kurdish food? Asia Restaurant gives you the unique fusion of flavours from Turkey, Iraq, Syria and Iran. Eat in at 5 Fitzwilliam Street, Peterborough, PE1 2RU. Or order through Just Eat, Uber Eats or order through our website, asiarestaurant.co.uk. Call us on 01733 562 530. Asia Restaurant, the true taste of the Middle East. You could be driving, you might be cooking, you could even be working. But whatever you're doing, you're also listening to Salam Radio. And if you're in business, your potential new customers could be listening too. So talk to them and let them know what you have to offer. Advertising on Salam Radio is affordable and effective. And by doing so, you're also supporting this valuable and important voice within the community. Call 07866 319 679 or find Salam Radio online and across social media.
This is Salam Radio.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the Body, Health and Mind Show with your very own Dr Shabina Asad Qayyum on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. Thank you for joining me in the first half of the show where I spoke a little bit about hay fever. I say a little bit because if I was to go on and on and on about it, it would have really... I would have droned on and it would have made you bored. However, what I will finish off with is that there are some people in very severe circumstances whereby you have adopted all the methods that we've spoken about. You know, you've had your steroid nasal sprays, your antihistamines, you douche the nose, you've put Vaseline in your nostrils and on your eyelashes as well, you've closed your windows, but you still cannot escape the dreaded pollen allergy. So in those cases, I have often seen phenomenal relief by giving a short course of steroids by mouth. And I've done that in severe cases, and I've usually done that in those adults who completely, their lives are debilitated, they've completely destroyed work-life balance, you know, and they've not been able to enjoy the summer. And that's the sad part of it, really, isn't it? That you've got this beautiful sunshine outside, this glorious sunshine. We are so blessed to have sun when we do have it, with all the pretty gardens and flowers, and then not being able to enjoy it. You know, the beautiful green countryside, it just makes life miserable. And I've found, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I found that over the years, I'm seeing more and more people develop more and more allergies. And I don't know whether that's due to our farming methods or our crops or the genus of crops that are being produced and the growth of them. But it's a really interesting topic to think about. And I'm sure that if I do enough research, I'll be able to dig up some studies. So please do join me and talk to me on the show. We've got some comments that I'm going to read out. And call us on 01733 602 133, or you can text us on 07411 1062. And the comments I've got are from Elaine Parkin, my friend. Hello there. Thank you very much. Elaine says it's a great show. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you very much for joining us on the show. Welcome, welcome. And we have Dr. Azhar Chowdhury. Mashallah, great advice about hay fever. I get it myself and use all the mentioned tips and medicines on a daily basis. I did not know that you suffer from hay fever, Dr. Azhar. So maybe next time you can do a show with me and we can talk about what your experiences are. I think it's really important to share lived experiences as well. I indeed take an antihistamine throughout the year because of the reasons that I stipulated at the beginning of the programme. And that's how I get round. And I always think that there's a merit in preparing beforehand. It's so important that you prepare beforehand so that your life isn't miserable once the hay fever season hits you. And I've got Jason McNally. Have I missed the hay fever bit? Unfortunately, you have, Jason, but you can look back because there is a recording of this, so you'll be able to have a look back at it. And by the way, Jason is a beekeeper in Peterborough, and there is much evidence to support the fact that local bees who make local honey from local pollen, if that honey is ingested, always be wary if you're diabetic. That can help with hay fever symptoms. And Jason is a beekeeper. If anybody's interested, you can contact Jason, although I don't think he'll have enough honey for the whole of Peterborough. But we can try. I've asked him for some as well. So thank you very much, Jason, for tuning in. Now, we are going to talk a little bit about health tips for Hajj and how to stay healthy during Hajj. And the reason why I say this is we have millions of people who have flocked to the Holy Land of Mecca and Medina to offer pilgrimage that is once in a lifetime experience for so many Muslims over the world. It's a very special time for Muslims, and for those of you who aren't Muslim, one of the things that I would like to speak about is that This is known as Eid al-Adha, which is the Hajj commemorates that, and this month commemorates and is symbolic of the time that Prophet Abraham gave sacrifice in the name of his Lord. And this story has been illustrated in the Quran and in the Bible as well, how God had ordered Prophet Abraham to sacrifice his most precious thing, and that was his son. And at the point of the sacrifice, his son changed into a ram, so that ram was then sacrificed. So this is symbolic of that in the Islamic faith, of that ultimate sacrifice. And it is about ultimate sacrifice. What is it that we sacrifice in life? There are lots of us who sacrifice many things, don't we? Some of us sacrifice in the way of making compromise. Some of us sacrifice in the way of trying to make ends meet. Some of us emotionally sacrifice and put our needs behind those of the ones that we love and hold dear. So this month is about sacrifice. It's very important to look at the symbolic meaning of sacrifice as well. And what Muslims do throughout the world is they sacrifice a goat or an animal, and they distribute the meat to the poor and the needy, or give in charity to the poor and the needy at this time. So that is what it is symbolic of. However, Hajj itself, going to Mecca and performing pilgrimage, is a very big undertaking, especially at this time of the year when it is so hot. And with that come a few health issues that one needs to be aware of. And when we think about Hajj, and when we think about it from a symbolic perspective, it is so important to understand that in order to perform a form of worship, that we respect our bodies. We respect our bodies and treat it well. Our bodies do have a right over us. It really does. And if we are to treat it well, then we will function well, not only emotionally, but physically. So what you put into your body is going to reflect on the outside as well. So I'd like to give you that as a take-home message as well. And I've got Jason. I've got you a jar in reserve, Dr. Q. Thank you very much, Jason. I'm looking so forward to it. Thank you so much. And a shout out for Jason because he has had an ankle injury. So I hope you're recovering. I hope you're recovering soon. So moving on, I'm going to talk a little bit about some key health-related issues and advice for the Hajj preparation. But what I say as a disclaimer is that if you have any particular health issues, please always refer back to your own GPs, as they know your history better. So my advice isn't a one-size-fits-all. It is very much general and generic advice. So I'd like you to take that on board as well. So you have those tips before traveling that you can think about, and obviously during your travel as well. And before you travel, one thing, there are three areas that you have to look at. Number one, vaccinations. Are you vaccinated? Do you have the required vaccinations that are needed in order to perform the Hajj? Do remember, you'll be exposing yourself to millions of other people. It is incredibly important that you have the right vaccinations to protect yourself from any of those deadly illnesses that you can put yourself at risk of. And we will be talking about that as well. It's important to keep yourself physically fit. How physically fit are you before you go for Hajj? It is important to ensure that you maintain a level of physical exertion before you go for Hajj. And then we talk about the things that you need to shop for before you go for Hajj. And then you've got the Hajj health implications. So before you go, it is very important that you have your vaccinations as well. And they should take place at least 10 days before you travel to Saudi Arabia. It's important that you take the most seasonal and the most recent up-to-date influenza vaccine, especially if you're 65 years and older, and if you're pregnant or if you have underlying medical conditions. That's the first vaccination that I think that is very important as well. then it's important that you have your pertussis or mumps injection as well. Pertussis is your whooping cough. And MMR needs to be up to date. Then yellow fever, meningococcal meningitis, and your COVID-19 vaccine as well. So these are some of the things that do need to be taken. So I'd like you to think a little bit about that for a while. In case you think you might need a booster or vaccine, it's important that you just have a travel health risk assessment appointment at least 6 to 7 weeks before you are due to fly. And it's important also that pilgrims submit proof of their COVID-19 vaccination and a negative PCR test report 3 days before you fly as well. It's also important that pilgrims, last but not least, it says that you should actually implement good practice and wear a mask too, because you are going to be exposed to so many other people during your travel. Now, we all know that Hajj is very physically exertive. So, involved in those Hajj rituals are obviously walking around the Kaaba and circumambulating about 7 times, running between Safa and Marwa, and obviously spending an open night in Muzdalifah. So these are the 3 things that you need to be physically fit for in order to perform the rituals of Hajj in a righteous way as well. So how would you optimize your physical fitness? Just start walking. Swift walking 30 minutes a day, not more than that, or exercise at least 4 times a week. You can do so wherever you are, whatever place you're in, even at home. 30 minutes walking a day before you go for Hajj is essential. And I would start this at least 2 months before you go for Hajj if you intend to go for Hajj. So that is what needs to be done. Then we talk about medication. So what are the things that you need to shop for? Now, many people have gone already, but I think it's important that you have a list of the things that you need to shop for. Regular prescription medication, very important, especially those people who are diabetic and need insulin as well. Vaseline, which is very important because you get chafing of your calves because of the walking. Some people do get it. You will need some Diorolite to help for oral rehydration in case you develop diarrhea or loose motion whilst you're there. Paracetamol is important. Getting some ibuprofen is important. Lemsip, you never know, you could get a cold whilst you're out there as well. Vitamin and energy tablets such as vitamin C, those fizzy effervescent tablets, which are very important for boosting energy. Get an antihistamine. Get some Optrex for dry eyes. It's important that you get some Optrex for dry eyes. Deep heats and Vicks to open any nasal passages if you have a blocked nose, or deep heat for muscle pain. Strepsils. Antibacterial gel is very important. You can have sanitizer and sunscreen that is obviously non-scented. So all of these items should actually be non-scented. Do make sure that you get these before you go. Now, during your travel, it is important that whilst you're traveling, if there is a medical emergency, you can make contact with a few emergency hospitals that you will be linked with when you are there as well. But once you get there, there are a few other things that you need to be aware of. And one of them is, top of my list, that I would say, stay hydrated. Staying hydrated is the key to you staying active throughout your time during Hajj. And since Hajj usually takes place in the peak summer months of the year, and the temperature is almost always at this time above 40 degrees Celsius, drink as much water as you possibly can. This, number one, minimizes your chances of getting a heat stroke. It keeps you energetic. It will keep you healthy during your journey. And because you are in a very hot climate, your uptake should increase from not 8 glasses of water a day. It should go up to 10 to 12 glasses of water a day. So that is very important in order for you to stay healthy. Drink water that is sealed, that is purified, or directly from the Zamzam containers, and nothing else. No tap water. That could lead to you getting an infection and getting diarrhea and a stomach bug as well. There have been a lot of changes around COVID-19. I mean, there's lots of legislation that has come in place. So Saudi Arabia has celebrated having 2 COVID-free years where none of its citizens had contracted COVID or had any COVID-related deaths. And as a result of that, they've now relaxed their COVID-19 protocols as well. So even though, as a pilgrim, you are required to wear masks in the sacred cities of Mecca and Medina, the festival and event organizers have the liberty to mandate masks only if they wish to. Okay? So you should have a digital copy of your vaccine certificate on you if it is asked of you, and please do demonstrate that or show that, and that could be via your NHS app, which most of us have anyway. After keeping hydrated, the second thing I would recommend is sunscreen. An awful lot of sunburn goes on. I have, you will not believe, been messaged by so many people that have texted me because all the way from Saudi Arabia because they've suffered from sunburn. And I've often then told them what they need to do or what they need to take or what they can buy, because there are many medications in Saudi Arabia that you can just simply buy over the counter. So they will show me that they've suffered from sunburn, and I will then tell them what they need to do. So always apply sunscreen that is non-scented. You can get some block sunscreen, and try resting in the shade as much as possible during Hajj. Sunscreen will always protect your skin and keep it moisturized, minimizing your chances of getting sunburn, especially in the hottest period during the day. So always try to put on a factor 50 at least sunscreen that is hypoallergenic. There are some good brands out there. Uvistat is one of them. It is non-comedogenic. It is non-irritating. Uvistat is a very good sunscreen to use. You also have La Roche-Posay, which do a very good non-scented sunscreen. So have a look at those as well. But La Roche-Posay comes in smaller tubes. Uvistat comes in bigger tubes. So you can get litre bottles of Uvistat as well. So have a look at that too. Then I'd like to talk a little bit about personal hygiene, obviously, in Hajj. So because you will be amongst millions of others, it is very important to wash your hands as frequently as possible when you are undertaking Hajj, especially before and after using the bathroom. Sneezing, coughing, blowing your nose, and eating. In case you have applied an ointment over a wound or a muscle as well, it is equally important that you wash your hands with soap and water before you come in contact with another person, because that could cause a transference of germs, and you could also take on those germs as well. If you're unable, however, to wash your hands every now and then, carry a bottle of hand sanitizer with you and use it whenever required. That will also prevent you from contracting stomach bugs and other infections that people so commonly get when they go on Hajj as well. And that's what brings me to my next point, and that is about food poisoning as well. If something doesn't taste right, just don't eat it. It's not worth it. You need to be extra careful during Hajj about what you eat and drink as well. It is one of the most common health problems to have diarrhea whilst on Hajj, and pilgrims suffer from it during this journey. So it is very important that you take care of your health in that regard. And I know that it's arduous, but it's easier said than done. None of us will ever think that it happens to us whilst we're feeling well, but once we're struck down with a bug or an illness, then it is difficult to recover from it and keep up with it as well. Do take multivitamins, and the simple way to strengthen your body and your immune system is to take some multivitamins with you. So you can do that alongside maintaining healthy eating habits. You can take supplements, and those supplements should at the very least have minerals like calcium, magnesium, your vitamins like vitamin D, vitamin C, and vitamin D. These are the energy and strength vitamins as well. And these help in relieving also stress and anxiety. They do make your bones stronger, obviously, and they relax your heart, body, and your mind. So do take some multivitamins with you and take them as a matter of regularity as well. Something that I found very interesting was shaving blades. Now, a while ago, I helped with a sister who's called Sister Shabnam, who did a show with me on hepatitis C. You may recall that she contracted hepatitis C through a blade or something like that while she was in Pakistan. And shaving blades are a real risk in terms of contamination with hepatitis C. So it is very important that in order to prevent the transmission of hepatitis C and even hepatitis B, use disposable blades when trimming or shaving your hair, and in the case of men, your beard as well. Make sure the barber uses the blade too. Don't overexert yourself. This is one of the things that I always talk about. Everything is good in moderation. Performing the rituals of Hajj requires you to walk for miles and carry out various physical activities, and you do need your energy for that. So it's advised that one should avoid overexerting themselves because it can trigger other health-related concerns too. Cardiac problems, such as heart attacks, are one of the leading cause of death, I repeat, amongst people that perform the Hajj. So it is very important that if you have any medication that are on repeat, that you take your medicines on time and take short breaks to catch your breath whenever possible in case you don't feel good. It is very important that you contact a medical professional right away. Now, always, this was sort of more of a generic type of thing, but if you do come down with diarrhea, the best thing to do is to rehydrate yourself orally and to have as much fluid as possible, and try not to have diluted water because that can dilute the salts that you have lost further and make you even more unwell and sick, and you don't want that. So use Diorolite sachets or ORS, which is oral rehydration solution that can be got from any of the pharmacies there in Saudi Arabia as well. But in order to prevent yourself from contracting diarrhea, avoid crowded places. 2 million people perform the Hajj every single year. Therefore, to keep a safe distance from the crowds and avoid performing the rituals during the peak hours and rather at the quieter times, so that you can do so with diligence, dedication, and being steadfast as well. It is important that whilst you are going to the country that houses Makkah and Medina, please follow that government's rules and instructions too. And there's a lot of signage that is there, so please follow the instruction signage. This prevents overcrowding and managing footfall, which can be fatal, as we've seen with a lot of these people, stampedes, where people have come together and been subjected to crush. So follow the arrows and the instructions as well. Last but not least, I think it's so important that we talk about the unpredictability of life. I know there are many people that will go for Hajj and go for the pilgrimage and unfortunately lose their lives. Always keep some form of ID with you, because anything can happen at any time. So carry your ID card so the guards, whoever there, or if anything happens, you can be supported in your time of need. And that, my dear brothers and sisters and friends, is the end of today's Body, Health and Mind show. I hope you liked it. I certainly enjoyed it. I want to give a shout out to Ali, who's our new station manager. We're not new. He's been around, but he's been lurking in the background. And I said I was going to give him a shout out. He's probably smiling away. And oh my goodness, he has grown so much. He's huge now. He's huge. He never used to eat anything before, but now he's put on weight. So well done, Ali. Thank you for carrying the show today. And for all you listeners, until next time,